UBC, inspiring Uganda.
Good evening and welcome to Behind the Headlines. My name is Timothy Nyangweso. As elections pick up steam, as 2026 looks like something that is looming, a lot of issues need to be addressed. The biggest issue to be addressed in this coming up election is the land question. A lot has been done to ensure that land is in a better position, all the way from the 95 Constitution to the 1998 Land Act, 2003 land regulations, all the way to 2 years ago where we had a land information system that was for you, a portal for you to be able to check on your land. But the biggest question is, where are we getting it wrong? Why do we have so many disputes, so many wrangles, so many evictions in this country, and yet land is finite? With a growing population, what are the solutions to end the land wrangles, but also end land grabbing in this country? Corruption, fraud, those are some of the issues that have been shown upon the Ministry of Lands, Housing and Urban Development. But the question is, with these ideas they're coming up with, are they the silver bullet to end the land wrangles in this country? That's our biggest discussion today as we take a keen eye on how land can be answered, especially with the questions it has. Let me introduce the panel. On my immediate left, Professor Sarah Sali, the Dean at the School of Women and Gender Studies at Makerere University. She's with us this evening. Good evening, Professor.
Good evening, Timothy, and good evening, our viewers.
Next to the professor is a Senior Information Technology Officer at the Ministry of Lands, Esther Apio. Good evening, Esther.
Good evening.
It's good to have you.
And good evening, viewers. Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Next to the Esther is the Assistant Commissioner of Land Registration at the Ministry of Lands, Urban Development and Housing, Mr. Johnson Bijira. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, colleagues. Good evening, viewers.
It's good to have you. Thank you. Hosting the two of you for the first time.
Thank you so much.
Especially the conversation that we started with.
I mean, we are enjoying the environment and the mood so far.
Oh, I hope that's what we end with towards the end there. Next
we
to
hope so.
the Assistant Commissioner there is Dr. Charles Tolit, who is a Senior Associate at the Center for Constitutional Governance. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Doctor,
good evening, viewers.
I think it's also in order that we congratulate you on the conference you had last week. Congratulations on that.
Oh, yeah, thanks.
And hosting one of the most prominent speakers on this region. Congratulations.
It's a constitutional conference.
Yes, constitutional
I think
conference.
it is timely.
Professor, you didn't show up. It was really epic. I watched it online. I sent some people there. Lastly but not least, the Acting Commissioner for Surveys and Mapping, Mr. Jasper Kakoza at the Ministry of Lands, Housing and Urban Development. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir, and good evening, viewers.
It's good to host all of you here, and I hope we have a very fruitful conversation going forward. But before we get into our conversation tonight, you can be part of the show. Go to our YouTube channel, drop your comment there, let us know what you think. Or our X platform, hashtag UBC Behind the Headlines there, let us know what you think. The number is 0709 60 25 92. WhatsApp and text there. Let us know what you think. Whatever issue you are facing with land, especially in whatever area you're in, let us know what exactly you're going through. But this country has 4 tenures of land systems in our country. One is customary, Milo, freehold, and lease. Those are the 4 tenures of land we have had. But also, the Land Act has had an amendment in 2010. We've had numerous mechanisms to ensure that there's an end to grabbing and all these allegations that go on there. But let me give you a few numbers before I begin with the Assistant Commissioner there. The numbers that really got me today were numbers that came in from an organization called Witness Radio Uganda. And the report is of 2024. 360,000 people are displaced due to land grabbing between January and June 2024. 52 were in Central, 24 in Western, 8 in northern, 6 in eastern, and 2,160 people are evicted daily. 723 hectares are grabbed daily. And the people that are allegedly involved in this are 37 armed gangs. 25% of these, 25 of these land grabbings have been done enforced by police, 5 by the UPDF, and 4 by security organizations there. So that is the picture of what happens in lands as a ministry there, but also as the land question goes on there. But let me start with Commissioner Johnson. Commissioner, where did we come from? Where are we in our land management and governance as a country?
Thank you so much, Mr. Moderator. Thank you, colleagues, and thank you, viewers. It has been a long journey and still a long journey, but at least we have taken some steps. From the first story of land registration in Uganda starts with the 1900 Uganda Agreement. That's where we started from. And over time, from 1902 onwards, when we started the surveys, to date. So the first surveying, the surveying exercise, you know, land, people owned land before, but now the surveying and titling, really that arrangement started from 1900 agreement, Uganda Agreement. So up to 2013, we have been operating progressively under different regimes, manual instruments or manual titling. Yes, the surveying has been manual, the titling has been manual, and the information has been stored in a manual form. So government, together with the partners, found this to be problematic. Over time, we are losing information, and our information was being compromised. So the planners of the ministry and together with the partners like with the World Bank decided to begin on a process of digitizing, securing the land records, the land titles, and other land information into a digital form. So effective 2013, we migrated to now digital form by transforming all the other records we kept in a manual format. Now we have a digital register. The same information we had in digital form, we digitized it. Now we have what we call the land information system, which captures that other information in a digital form. So we have the manual records, yes, but now we are putting all our effort in securing the information in digital form. So really, I can happily say that from 2013, we progressively started doing away with the manual records to digital land information system.
What percentage are we looking at with digitizing the information system?
Really, okay, you would ask that how much of land in Uganda is titled, okay? All the land that we have with us, all the land that is titled is actually digitized, okay, with some few improvements, including what you call the blue page. We have also already digitized it, okay? So if we are at about 45% of total land mass in Uganda being titled, between 30 to 45%, all that one is digitized. And we insist now all subsequent transactions that are being done are in digital form.
So let me ask a question, because land evictions, land disputes, wrangles, someone has a land problem for 5, 10, 15 years. What are you trying to solve with this digitization? Actually,
the digitization, I don't want to call it a silver bullet, but it has helped us as a ministry to, first of all, one, secure our records, okay? Now we are no longer worried that the documents are going to wear and tear, no, because now the digital format is permanent. Two, it was able to expose many of the problems we have been grappling with, including forgeries and fraud. Although we may not say that we have succeeded 100%, but it has been able to expose many of these loopholes we are grappling with. Then, this digitization also has helped us to weed out the elements of fraud. Yes, it's work in progress, but it has helped us to weed out that. Then it has helped us also to fast track the delays that we used to have in the past are no longer there. At least we are reducing them. We are fighting to reduce the turnaround time. If we can really achieve our target to complete every transaction that is brought to us in less than 4 days, we are trying to bridge that gap.
Okay. Thank you very much. And I'm going to come back to you because it seems like instead of decentralizing, you're centralizing, because we're talking about the district land boards, the Uganda Land Board. There are all these things happen, different facets managing land, and yet you're talking about a digital solution for all of them. Let me come back to you. Let me come to Dr. Charles. Dr. Charles, you have been in this country for a while. Why is Uganda's land system troubled? Why hasn't it settled from 1900 to date that we have not found a solution to bring peace in all our 4 tenure systems?
Well, thank you. An interesting question there. I must admit, as I tried to revisit this subject, what crossed my mind was the topic we have selected for ourselves today. I was asking myself, digitization? Okay, sounds cool.
Sound elitist.
Yeah, because we are in the information age. And I think we should be doing everything to be getting to in tandem with that world. But the bigger question for me was and is, what does this mean to the very ordinary Ugandan? What is the story of this Ugandan? And the story of this Ugandan is a story of, a white ghost in the room that was introduced sometime in the 19s, as you correctly say, in the name of freehold land tenure. And the senior colleague from the ministry correctly says registration started about 1900. I didn't take very long, because what really happened is that, in effect, if you look at it with a legal mind, what happened in effect was that immediately the freehold was introduced, it transformed what was. And what was that? What was that most of the land held in Uganda by the Ugandans was in the communal land tenure system, which we knew about. So this animal comes, or this creature comes, and actually brings land to the market. It commoditizes land, as they say. And the problem started in earnest. Actually, the very first bullet shot to try and salvage that white ghost was 1927, particularly in Buganda. You know the story of the Busulu, and all that. Another 10 years after, when the British sign up Toro, sign up Ankole in 1937, another intervention is made in effect. What was now happening was that with the introduction of the freehold land system, literally or overnight, hundreds of people were turned landless. A new phenomena was ushered where traditional landholders, both the original or native Baganda and the migrants, now had to start paying rent. So the issue of displacement that you're talking about now, that is happening up to 2024, as you've cited in those statistics, has been around with us. So the question is, what has changed? And without going into too much of that history or too much of the legal elements of this subject, because we know there have been a lot of what do you call it, hallmarks in the land legal regime. Because after 1937, we had 1969, where they tried, because of the challenges of the freehold, there was an attempt to try and regularize or strike a balance for the communal landholders with the 1969, Communal Land Act. 1975 was another era of Amin and all that land brought into the hand of government, and the introduction of the Uganda Land Commission now. Then we have the 1995 Constitution. Shortly after that, we have the Land Act, 1997. There's an amendment in 2010. And but that is besides the story. The real story here is, has this ghost left the room? And what I would be expecting to see as policy responses or programs coming from the Ministry of Land, much as it's vogue to try and stay in tandem with the times, with the digital age and all that, he's trying to give us the advantages. They are securing documents, they are safer, they are quicker. I am not sure whether, if you ask the actual questions, how long does it take, for an ordinary person, to start a process, to get the white paper, go to the blue paper. You're still talking about application processes. You're not even talking about the disputes, because the issues of disputes, the costs are just phenomenal. So for me, if you asked me an honest question, I would honestly tell you it's a blind shot.
Wow. This ghost that you keep talking about, how do we take it away?
That's for me?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
The men in the dock are here.
I'm coming to the men in the dock, but as an observer outside, because you have experience dealing with the ordinary person.
Yes.
You have experience dealing with constitutionalism outside there.
Yes.
As an ordinary person, I will leave the confidence of the ordinary person to the ministry, but they're looking for help. I met a person in Gulu 25 years later. The person died with a court case. So the registration is good, the documentation is good, but I want my land. How safe is it? This ghost, how do we take it away?
Okay, I'll tell you something. As a student of governance, I'll tell you that this problem is structural. This problem is structural. This is a governance problem. And you cannot delink the land question or any other questions we are having from, the entire body politic of a rather struggling government, if you might allow. And this is arising from forces both internally and outside. Because remember, first of all, the free landhold system that we're talking about is a creation of the British with colonialism. And that story ended, and somehow we had this guy, like the historians say, he went through the front door and came back from the back door. I am very suspicious when I hear World Bank, in all these issues. So for me, if we really must fix this problem, They are very simple steps. One of the challenges we have, and if I'm to look at it from a point of governance, is there is so much lack of awareness and education. And probably that's where I would like to see money go. I'll tell you why. I was part of a study in Karamoja and the land question there. You know, the rise of minerals and all that. There are a few more complicated things. You know, this whole thing of surface ownership and then ownership of surface and below and all that. I don't want to go into those technicalities. But what happens in a market economy like ours, where there are speculators, you've had this, the same problem we're now having in Bunyoro. Once people gain information ahead of you, then they're going to speculate with land. And that is the problem of land as a commodity. Now, the challenge we have is that, particularly, say, if you look at the 1998 Act that, you know, tried to create a position of comfort for those who are renting land but do not necessarily hold the title, was that you then should know what your rights are and you should know what your responsibilities are. But just like many basic governance questions, for instance, let me give you an example. You are challenged over your land today. There are many ordinary people who do not know even which is the next office to go to. Just as basic as that. And that's the kind of information I'm talking about. Because that is what governance is about. That are you able to say, let me go to the LC1, make a report, a minute is taken, a record is taken, and after a week, with certainty, he tells me, come back after 5 days, and it would have gone to the next step and gone to the next step. Or if the issue is probably with a local MP, because these are power games. Where do you report an MP? The kind of legal framework we have, if the issue is not criminal, the only person who, for instance, an MP is liable to is the Speaker. How many people can afford to reach the Speaker? Because an MP cannot be summoned by a DPC, it cannot be summoned by an RDC, so you can see the kind of power imbalance. You can see the governance creature we are living with. And that is the distortion that is not only affecting land, is affecting health, is affecting schools. You saw the crisis here during in fact, COVID-19, I can't wish that it should come back, but I think COVID-19 was a good natural checker. We then realized how ordinary we can be. You know, Ugandans for once experienced that, you know, you are first of all ordinary, and then there are systems that you live within and you can rely on. Because look at, say, the local bus transporters or taxi transporters or the local clinics. See how they hiked prices. But who could restrain them? We had government officials shouting off their voices on the streets, but what could they do? But that is the kind of creature we have created. The English say, if you make your bed, you must lie on it. And that's the situation we found ourselves inside. There is a crisis in this country, a governance crisis.
Thank you very much. Let me read some feedback before I get to Commissioner Jasper there. Okay, someone in South Sudan is asking, how can I buy land in Uganda? We'll deal with that later. Good evening, UBC. As a landlord having tenants on bona fide occupants who have been on my land since 1980, I am willing to have them settled permanently through having my interest on the said land be transferred to them and government compensates me. I surrender the title to government. How do I go about it? This is Wamala in Mutukula. Okay? I hope both commissioners are taking note of these questions. I am James Othieno from Tororo, watching live, but those problems of land are caused by the president who creates those administrations which are corrupt. Okay, one more. I have stayed on a piece of land for 10 years, but someone is claiming it now. What do I do? Okay, those are some of the questions there. Let me come to Commissioner Jasper. Commissioner, are you solving symptoms or a problem? And what problem are you solving with this digitization?
Thank you very much.
Because if you've had Dr. Charles, the underlying issues, yet you are covering the bed.
I will not say that all is lost. Actually, we shall say that we are migrating, like the Commissioner Johnson said. And with migration, there are so many things that come up. You see, when you migrate, that means, or even the errors that were committed before you migrated also come up. Because this time you're having a perfect system that is trying to understand a system that was not very perfect. So, with all those errors now that we are realizing, some of them are coming up because of migration. So after digitizing, like now we are managing the records in one place, we can easily see most of the errors that have been done in the land administration, land registration, land surveying. So now they are coming up as a one-stop center, and we can easily handle them accordingly. So to the general public, when such issues come up like the headlines, that so much has been grabbed, so much is coming up. Some of it is coming up because of even the actual system that has been put in place. It is now discovering all those other ills that have been happening on land. But like we say, there are some other aspects which are also coming up, because we know that land is a factor of production. Land is, as you said, is a governance factor. Land is a political tool. As we've seen, some countries are at war because of land. So land as an issue must really be looked at really as a really very important aspect in this country. So all these factors are, it's only land that you can buy in the morning and appreciates 100% in the evening. That's the only commodity that's now coming up. And that's why you're seeing these other, all the other people used to steal other things are now coming to land to grab. Actually, they are stealing, not even grabbing. Shall just say they are stealing the land, because that's a commodity that is selling like a hot cake. So now the issue is that after we have digitalized and done other issues as they have been brought into the project, there are some other, it's work in progress. We must now move on and see that what we have really done as of now should be protected and improved upon. Because you cannot say that, yeah, we have reached Eden as it must be. It is work in progress. All these things that we have put in place are now coming up, and they need to be completed. But the only problem that we are moving at a slow pace may be the grabbers could be moving at a faster pace than we are. Technology is also coming in. You find that people can forge money. What of a title? So some titles still, however much you move and put in extra security marks and others, still you find that people still can forge titles. And these ones are still available. So when you see all this outcry, that there are so many things happening on land, it is really, I'm not saying it's justified, but it is expected, because the land as a commodity, land as a factor of production, land as a tool of enrichment, land as a prestige. If I have got so many acres, that's prestige. You find that it's really going to be hot cake everywhere. So now it is we, people who in government, who should really come up and say that if this commodity is so much loved and so much valuable, how do we really address it as it is? Because before, you would find that when you look at the first priorities government had, land was not mentioned utmost. Because if you look at the 10-point program as it came out, land had been hidden in other aspects. But eventually you realize that land is really affecting all these other programs. The 10-point program could not stand out to move on, because if the land factor is not addressed. And as the professor said, of course there are some historical mistakes that were made. And I'm sure the land policy is trying to address those historical mistakes and historical injustices that came up on land. And we are still grappling with them. There are so many those historical injustices, as we are still grappling with them, and they are affecting our performance as well. Because there are so many other issues like the land in the lost counties, where titles, people are still keep their titles, but they are not on the land. They own the land, but they don't own it. Other people are on the land. All those issues cannot be addressed specifically by the digitization alone. There are so many other things that should come in: governance, legislation, and other aspects.
Shouldn't the land policy inform the legislation? because it was drafted 2013. Shouldn't it be helping with the legislation there?
Definitely it should, and that's why it's being revised. Actually, there's a revision that's going on, and it's trying to bring in all these other aspects that were missed out in the 2013 land policy enactment.
Commissioner Jasper, you are in charge of surveys and mapping. Multiple titles, that's a challenge. Delayed judgment, that is not in your docket. Fraud, corruption, ambiguous court orders, evictions, you know, people with power getting titles, a title on top of another title. Really, digitization, are you going to solve any of these challenges? And case in point, I cannot mention the district I was in, but someone called the registrar and said, I'm going for a funeral, I need 16 million shillings. And within your system, 16 million shillings was raised for this power that bees. So really, digitization, these are problems that Commissioner Johnson is saying can be solved. Can they?
They can, because you see, overlapping titles, like I've said, some of these things are coming up because of the actual digitalization that has happened. Because before, in the manual system, you would find, like, for example, I could give you an example that you find that the Milo land tenure system had its own registrar and sheets, cadastral sheets, as compared to the other tenure systems. So you'll not even know which one is overlapping on the other. You'd find that the districts are operating a cadastre of Milo land, which was complete up to titling without being taken onto the national cadastre, which was handled in Entebbe. But this time now, with the new system, all of them have been merged together, and they are being handled as on one platform. So that's why you're finding that now there are so many overlaps, so many, the fraud, of course, as you've said. But with the controls that we are putting in place, because like, let me first of all say what is causing, what could have caused the overlaps. In the 80s and the early 70s, or late 70s and 80s and early 90s, I think we had a campaign of destroying our markstones, our control points. These points you saw on hills, which had been put, those geometrical points, were the ones which were supposed to properly georeference all the surveys that were being done. But people went, vandalized them, and we could not stop the surveys per se. So what did we do? We found that our forefathers by then allowed surveys to be done either on an assumed coordinate system or on a survey that began from an old markstone, which was just a boundary mark on some parts of land. And if that point had errors, all those errors would be propagated into the other surveys. But now we are saying no. We are going back to establishing a new geodetic reference system, which is called the Uganda Geodetic Reference Network, whereby all the surveys will be controlled onto one reference system, so that if there's an error, you can easily detect it, because there are not several reference systems. With surveying, if you have got several reference systems, it's very difficult to control. That's why you find that some of them are either overlapping on maps, but on the ground they're okay. And others are overlapping on the ground, but the maps don't show the overlaps. So all those ones are issues which we are trying to detect with the digitalization. They are coming up as of now.
Thank you, Commissioner Jasper. And one of the challenges is that you look for the oldest reference point, either a church or the oldest title. But let me come to Professor. Professor, there's Dr. Charles mentioned, in hindsight, a multifaceted problem. Delayed justice. A person died 25 years later, did not get justice for their corruption, fraud, manual processes. Is digitalization of titles as land administration the solution? What's your view on this one?
Yeah, thank you, Timothy. I think to answer your question straight away, digitalization is not necessarily the silver bullet, but digitalization is good because it will show us how much land you have. It will show you what this land is being used for, because those are things we lack. We just assume so-and-so has a square mile and another one has this and that and that. But for national planning purposes, if you are to plan for the land, it's going to be difficult. It is currently difficult because people don't have it in one place, okay? You just assume and make assumptions. So titling, as I've explained, has been there for a long time and has been manual. And even then it has been tampered with. And digitization, we are yet to see whether it will not suffer the same consequences that titling has suffered. Because the question is not just because of digitalization we are seeing these things. The issue should be, why are they occurring in the same, in the first place? And of course, he has explained very well, Commissioner Jasper, that, and everybody else, there are issues of fraud, there are issues of land grabbing. But again, why are these issues there in the first place? First of all, land is not just land. Land, maybe at the time of the colonial era, it was an issue of identity. That's why people had a whole hill and they were happy that I have that hill, even when nothing occurred on that hill for 50 years. But of course, we know land is now a source of livelihoods. We also know land is a source of the economy, depending on what government wants to develop on it or what we want to use the land for as individuals. But also the biggest thing now, land has developed a commercial value. The commodification they talked about. And so, and unfortunately, the way our economy has gone, it has not grown as fast in a way to catch up with the population and its needs. We have a galloping population increase. And then you don't have other sectors of the economy growing as fast in terms of industry. The investors that come here also are not yielding very much back into the economy. Then you have a lot of land fragmentation, which makes the land less productive. So at the end of the day, a household which would have farmed enough so as to be able to sell can no longer sell. Instead, what do they have to sell? They sell the land. And you can be amazed if you go to villages, including our villages, at the reasons you're being contacted to buy land. You're being contacted to buy land because the fees of a child cannot measure up. And what are they missing? They're missing 300,000. They're missing 200,000, and the child is going to miss senior 4. What do they have to sell? They want to sell the land. Someone is sick, they want to sell the land. Someone has died, they want to sell the land. And actually what happens with the communities like that is when you give away land to your children in terms of inheritance, you leave the portion of land which will bury you. So you have the fragmentation which is going to the living children, then the piece whereby should you drop dead, that's what is put up for sale, and from that we earn enough to buy your coffin, to feed the mourners. So land has developed a different kind of currency. But of course you also have things like urbanization, which also puts up the price of land. So we are all excited to sell land. Unfortunately, it is a fixed resource, okay? You cannot expand it like you're expanding crops. So it is a fixed resource. And now you're seeing people moving in land which was not even traditionally or culturally their land. Okay? So in the past, land as identity meant that if you came from this ethnic group, that is where God gave you and you stayed there. But with the economics now, that is being defied. So digitalization is as good as the commissioners make it. But the issue is, because you're dealing with human beings, there's a lot of interference in these processes. And for one, digitization to work, land must be titled. I don't think we are digitalizing every piece of communal land tenure. When you look at your own statistics, they are reported to be, and I come from gender, so I was looking at the gender statistics in land, and they're saying of the land which is, first of all, there's not enough land which is registered. If a few pieces of our land, less land is registered than what is under communal land ownership or traditional land ownership. And of that, 34, the males, in terms of land registration, land registered under males is 34%. For the females, it ranges from 18 to 15%. So why isn't the rest of the land registered? Or why isn't it even titled? Why isn't it even surveyed? One, because of the high cost of doing surveys. We have tried to do surveys in the villages, and some of the villages we come from, you can't buy 10 acres together. You buy portion, and you buy portion, and you buy portion. So whichever portion you have, because you know that you're in a very compacted area, it is likely to be grabbed. So the moment you buy, whether it's 1 acre, you survey. So surveying is very, very expensive. So how many Ugandans can afford to have their land surveyed so that then we can digitize, okay? There's a time there was going to be in my village like an irrigation scheme. So people were saying, no, we don't have a problem with the irrigation scheme, but since you're taking our land together, because actually what the Ministry of Land or Ministry of Water did was to mark everyone, people who are going to be in the scheme. Let us know how many plots did you come in, how many acres do you have it. So you have this large area, but with individual people within there, and it's a government project. But the question is, the people are saying, can you have it surveyed for us? So that 10, 20, 30 years after the scheme, my people can know that our land was this amount. But even that, I think government maybe will not be able to undertake that because there are very many people within the scheme. So you have those kinds of challenges. So the high cost of surveying is a very big challenge. The limited economy that has made us not have anything to sell except land is a problem. And it's really being sold for good reasons. Education and health. No one is just selling land to eat food. They are trying to produce the little way. Of course, all these things, if digitization occurred well, it would help us with transparency, it would help us with planning. But the problem is, as you've just said, you know, at the district is again its own animal. One of the most lucrative things at district level are the district land boards, okay? So you have to struggle to be on a district land board because that's where things are. And I remember in some places where we have bought land where you want to have it titled and pass at district level, you have to finance the district meeting, which will sit to give you, because, and they do it in good faith. We are ready to pass your title, but we just don't have resources to host a meeting. So if you can help facilitate to bring the councillors from wherever they are coming from, and then we shall sit and pass this. Otherwise, you're going to wait for a year or two.
So a person who can't afford that?
A person, so I'm just explaining to you the costs. So you have the cost, first of all, the real cost of buying, and you get that little paper that you have bought land. Then the cost of surveying, the cost of ensuring that now at the district it is passed. And then, of course, then it has to be taken from a smaller district to the bigger district where there's the big land surveying. And all of this, you have someone chasing it for you. So it's very, very expensive. And so at the end of the day, most people will buy land, have that little paper, the agreement as we call it, and they cannot afford to digitize. So that becomes another challenge. But you see, as that is happening, there's someone who is ready to pay. So you have the issue of that kind of genuine truck that someone is ready to sell you the land, and this will be the cost. But there's also where, since land is the only commodity we are selling, I can sell it at a very high price, and people actually who cannot afford it will be bought off. So if I am your neighbor and I want to pay like 2 million for your plot of land in a particular village, and someone comes from Kampala and is ready to pay 10 million, so you end up actually people being bought off, and people are being sold off and being bought off, particularly where you have this kind of mixed land tenure systems. And they wake up and they say their land has been grabbed, but actually there was a willing buyer and a willing seller somewhere. It's just that you who was sitting on the land, you were not party to this arrangement. So there are all those things. So it is really the large costs. I don't think anyone would be, actually every person desires to have a title. And if we all had titles, it would be easy to digitize, because a title guarantees you some kind of settlement on that land, and if you are to lose it, you have some better compensation. Why people are still in these things which render them vulnerable is really the high cost of these things, and the way commercialization has occurred, and the way commodification has occurred, and of course digitization and titling in itself also brings on board the whole issue of individualization of land, so it can no longer be married comfortably with the communal and the traditional. So that kind of phase will have to go to make way for individual ownership of land. And so when that occurs, it is costly. But then the question you have to ask as a country is then what happens to the people who are vulnerable within those systems, who cannot afford? What happens when the communal ends and we all go individual? So basically, I can stop it at that, but the challenges are bigger, and some of them are structural, like Dr. Charles said. Some of them are because our economy is not working the way it's supposed to work. So we are going to sell the land until we have nothing else to sell.
Multifaceted issues there. Let me come to Esther, our IT expert here. Esther, where did you benchmark this idea, and what has been the benefits of it?
Yes, thank you, moderator, and good evening, viewers. The idea of
Digitalization.
digitization happened way back, as we have been told, actually from way back from the land reforms that we had in the country and all these legal and regulatory frameworks that we put in place. There have been a lot of benchmarks that were done, just to respond, some of which have been in the developed countries such as the UK, the Scotland, and other developed countries where the land information systems have been designed and the digitization of systems. But basically the issue of how the digitization has helped, because we've discussed all the challenges of...
First, give us the benefits of the countries you benchmarked from. What have you seen as the benefits? What were the challenges? Because that's the idea that anyone who is watching us wants to understand this digitization. Where did you learn it from, and what lessons did you learn from there?
Yeah, from the countries we learned from, there were really, first of all, the challenges that they had also in the past that were almost related to ours. One of them were the challenges of basically bringing the geospatial data together and the challenges of planning in their countries and challenges associated with all other aspects of the manual systems that they had at the time. Challenges associated with retrieval of information and actually the knowledge of who owns this and all that. Challenges of planning at the time. So when these countries, when they went and did the benchmarking, of course at the time of the benchmarking, there were already other processes that were taking place here before we had to go and benchmark to see how these people have done it. So when we came back, we had, of course, our own challenges that were really particular to the Ugandan context. So most of the challenges that we had were the poor quality of records, as they have stated, the transaction costs, the overlaps, the double plottings, and all that. So when we learned that really we had to see how these challenges can be addressed, we had to now embark on the digitization of land services. And by so doing, we have really seen that this digitization is really, much as other speakers have said that it may not be a silver bullet, I think it is going to be a silver bullet in a way of addressing the land question in the country and also solving the challenges that we've been having. One of the things that we have seen in the digitization currently in Uganda is the issue of actually addressing the challenges to do with overlaps, first of all, because as the Commission had already said, when the manual system was there in place, there were those challenges, and it was very hard to tell whether the title was overlapping with another. But then with now the digitization of the land services, we've seen that, first of all, the services have been decentralized and they have been taken to the different zonal offices across the country. And also we have seen issues whereby we are able to tell through the system. There are so many, the system has created kind of transparency where we are able to see that whatever has been done in the system, all the land records, all the information that is being done, whatever transactions are being processed in the system can be visible to whoever is meant to see them. And we have seen like challenges that have been existing due to overlaps, like the double plottings. We see that there have been different layers that have been integrated into the system as a result of the digitization. And this helps us to identify whether these parcels are overlapping with existing eco-sensitive areas and also maybe other parcels. And we have seen also transparency in way of access to the information and the transactions that we are doing in the system.
Esther, my last question before I read some feedback, because I'd like both Commissioner Jasper and Commissioner Johnson to respond. because there are quite a number of questions that people are discussing here. This digitization sounds very elitist. How is a person deep, using my own village in Busia, going to use this? Internet penetration in this country, you look at the growing population in this country, isn't this just an elitist transformation from paper to digital?
I think it is not really, because the journey of digitization started way back when we were securing the land records. And as I said, the decentralization of services across the country. We find now that before, someone had to walk all the way to Kampala in a way of trying to register title. But because of this decentralization and the digitization, even someone who is deep down in maybe Soroti can go to the nearest office and access the services. And this is one of the achievements of this digitalization of the land services. And because of now the issues of networks and all that, there has been an infrastructure that has been put in place. So you find that it's only for public users of the parcels, of the public portals, that can be able to maybe access this. And this can also be accessed via phones, the information, and also via the websites. So it's only like you can download this through the apps and also through the web portals. But also you can as well access this information through going to the zonal offices where they are nearer to the people and where your land is located.
Is there an offline option?
Of the, yeah, it's the
If I'm using
ministry zonal office.
Yes. On my phone, I can't use an offline option.
Sorry?
Can he use his phone offline to see the status of his land?
No, currently the portals are the ones that are available online,
So
and
you
you must have the data to access that. But you can as well get the same information by going to the zonal office that is nearest to you.
So I leave Busia because the zonal office is in Soroti.
No. It will be in Tororo. So we have the 22 ministry zonal offices across the country. And for each sub-region, we have the office that is nearest to them.
22 offices,
yes,
for 146 districts,
Sorry?
for 45.9 million people. Is that realistic? Let me read some messages. Good evening, this is Isaac. I hope you got the one, both commissioners, I hope you got the one on the gentleman who was talking about his land. He has people quoting on it. I hope you can respond to that one. Good evening, this is Isaac from Loro Town Council in Oyam District. In 2020, our lands were surveyed and we were asked to pay 95,000 per land for the land titles by the town council, but up to now, we have not yet got any titles. I hope you can respond to that. Thank you, Timothy, for the show and the panelists. The officials from lands need to explain the circumstances under which one piece of land would have multiple titles to cause conflict to the extent of death, information error. This is Leonard from Kawempe. Okay. Good evening. Thank you for the show. I am Okrut Christopher. I have land. I do not have a title. Christopher, how did you get the land? Okay. This is James from UCC in Soroti. Andrew at UEDCL erected pylons through UCC Soroti land. A land title was given to UDCL and for mutation, and they received the residue titles. It is now 13 years down the road. UEDCL is still holding the amalgamated titles and cannot use its land. The matter is before UDCL tribunal, but no headway. What should UCC in Soroti do to repossess its residue titles? Okay. Finally, before we take a break, thank you for the show, Timothy. This is important to discuss. What is the difference between a white paper, a white page, and a blue page? This is Edward. Okay. And finally, my question is, how do I do research on digital from my home? Can I have a toll-free number? from the panelists there. We will be sharing that number in a short while for you to be able to get to the Ministry of Lands. Let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll be responding to some of the queries here, but also digging more into this platform and what it means for the land question in this country.
To be a winner, you must have the discipline of a tiger. But when fueled with MTN Momo, winning is easy. Simply get your phone and use the Momo app or dial *165*3#, enter merchant code, enter amount, enter your Momo PIN, and pay. Congratulations! Your car is happy, and now you stand a chance to win mobile money with MTN Momo.
The parish development model launched in 2022 by President Yoweri Museveni to fight poverty and enhance service delivery at the parish level has disbursed over 1 trillion Uganda shillings to more than 10,500 circles, benefiting over 1 million individuals countrywide. The government of Uganda appreciates you for embracing PDM and using it to move away from Okorera Ekida Kyonka. You are encouraged to continue participating in this journey towards socio-economic transformation.
Parish development model meno misegese madongo mulukin ma Uganda ma President Yoweri Museveni owuodho i oro gana ariyo gi piero gariyo gatunga malwenyo gi chandi kod imedo iko ngeri matich pa government tundori dhano ma piny chako gi muluka otieko dhiro pesa silingi trillion achiel thoni abora beach risakos makalo gana par gi mia beach to ji milion achiel gana piero adek gariyo gi mia achiel gi piero aboro gadek thoko Uganda gi pi jonwang'o pesa madongruok gine. Government ma Uganda foyo wini rojolo chan ma parish development model to wi oro makwanyruok woko inyaka tishiri ich kende mung'ere tek ni okokolera e chidanchonka. Onyo igo kukuri jopiny medo riwruok i wuoth me makelo wirruok maber ithenge mating'o malo lim kod kuopa ji. Wach me okelere rin kod Government Citizen Interaction Center, State House.
Inenga harenga ya parish development model PDM yasimamisiwa omumwiko kwebikano bibiri kamina kibiri ni President Museveni husolanisa mu butambi ni hulosera hutapusa bibindu bikali mu miruha yaingisibwa moka mapesa silingi trillion sikano sitwera kama 55 kakaabirisibwa mu matuli sako kumukanda mutwera ni bitondo birano katapusibwa ku bandu babola ifuma ndwera kimikanda kitaru bikano bibiri sitondo sitwera kama 55 papataru mwinambo. Government ya Uganda khusima khule khwakanira PDM ni khukiyetsa khura khusye khurambira inda yonyene babandu balombe bakho khuyambira moneka harenga bubahobo okhutapusibakho ni ba Government Citizen Interaction Center, State House.
Development model lobu President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni itegi okarula 2022 anwaiti jiba korokali eto moronya nesi kwa nako raisi rigin trillion edope leji asisa ko ilwe de parete ilukumini tomon keda yakwa takani anakidona itunga lwe de parete million edope imeda uneto tomo parish development model anatari Uganda kere isiala mikitapu gano Uganda yasi kere anwaiji on kacham ne parish development model osodo tedai tosoma nesi anwamu atara ichano kalia kaijal aswam anwako ikiboni. Isinyiko kitiese president ayata kita igange parish development model tetera kere ontunakwa puok e jokunar. Siriate na yanga utijo eriong telo a government citizen interaction center State House.
Parish development model eyatandikirweho omwebembezi w'ihanga Yoweri Kaguta Museveni omwaka ogw'2022 okurwanisa obworo n'okutunguura obuheereza obwerikukorra aha rurengo rw'omuruka obwa hati yahiire sente ezirikurenga omu bihumbi 10,000 obwo nezigabira SACCOs zirikuhingura omu mutwaro gumwe eki kigasiire abantu miliyoni 1 omu ihanga lyona. Gavumenti ya Uganda nebasima mwena ahabw'okwejumbira omu nkoreegi eya PDM n'okugikoresa omu kwetungura mukaruga omu kukorra okulya kwonka kandi nimuhigwa kugumizamu omu rugyendo oru orw'entunguka. Obutumwa obu nibubareeterwa ekitongore kya Government Citizen Interaction Center State House.
Welcome back to this last leg of Behind the Headlines. My name is Timothy Nyangweso. In the studio, I'm joined by Professor Sarah Sari Estapio from the Ministry of Lands, the senior IT officer there. I'm also joined by Commissioner Johnson Bijira, who is in charge of land registration. I'm joined by Dr. Charles Tolit, who is a senior associate at the Center for Constitutional Governance. And finally, I'm also joined by the acting commissioner, Jasper Kakoza, who is in charge of surveys and mapping here. We're discussing everything the land question in this country, especially as we take this bend to get to 2026 elections. This is an issue that cuts across this country, north, east, central, west, and the question is, with this digitalization, what does that mean for land? Is your land safe? Is it secure? That's the discussion we're having today. But also, we're cognizant of Dr. Besigye being remanded to Luzira from the military Makinde court-martial there that happened today. We'll be making comments. Just two people will make comments on that towards the end of the show. But let me read just two more so that we can kick it off in this last leg. Good evening, Timothy. Call me Kenwengwa. It is not a surprise that we are facing a lot of land challenges in the country. The very first one is to protect the citizens about their land, and the ones stealing the land from them to protect them. This digitalization of land is just a new method of confusing Omuntu Wawansi. Okay, interesting. My title reads 1 acre, but unfortunately at the land office in Wakiso, it shows me 40 decimals. Yet I have never subdivided my land. What do I do to rectify this or such an anomaly? So, yeah, keep your messages coming, 0709 60 25 92. That's our WhatsApp number there. Or go to our platform, X platform, hashtag UBC Behind the Headlines. Drop your comment there. We'll be reading them in a short while, or our YouTube channel for you to let us know what you think. Commissioner Johnson, let me come back to you. Respond to some of the queries that are there, especially some that came earlier. A gentleman who talked about I'm a landlord having tenants, all bona fide occupants. We have been on my land since 1980. I'm willing to have them settled permanently through my interest on the land side to be transferred to them. Government should compensate me and I surrender the titles to government. How do I go about this? This is Wamala in Mutukula.
Okay, thank you, Timothy. But I think I'll be given a chance also to put some issues in perspective.
Yes.
But to first respond to this gentleman in Mutukula, that our land system in some areas has two owners. There's a title owner, then we have what the people who are enjoying the service rights, or the Chibanja holders, or what we can call bona fide, or for occupants, whichever category they fall in. How do the two enjoy the same piece of land? Ordinarily, one is supposed to pay the other one rent, if you may call it. And the law, the 1998 Land Act, and even the Constitution defines who a lawful and a bona fide owner on land is. So, After noticing that there was that problem, that there is one who is holding the title, or the one we call landlord, and there are other people who are on the land but they don't have anything, mainly in those counties. It was common even in Mitiana, Muvende, then in the areas of Luwero. Through the land fund, government had come up with a program of willing seller, where the government would compensate the landlord, then the land would be left to the surface holders or users in the forms of tenants. We have done a lot in the lost counties of Chiba and etc. through the land fund. So where someone has land, but is heavily occupied by people who are paying or not paying rent, okay? Where that person is willing to sell that land, he has an opportunity to offer that land to government to purchase through the land fund. Uganda Land Commission has been the manager of the land fund. So really, for people whose land is occupied and they have the titles but they cannot use it, and the people maybe are not paying rent, yet they're supposed to pay rent, then the government came up with that system through the land fund to compensate title owners, such that the land can remain for the people who are occupying that land.
So should he go to the district land board? Where should he go?
Really, the process is elaborate. You can approach it directly through writing to Ministry of Lands, or through writing to the Uganda Land Commission. But you can also go through the district leaders to offer that land to government for purchase.
Okay.
Yes.
You wanted to respond.
I want to respond to a number of things. I have said that from the early 1900, we have been having titles or processing land titles in Uganda. And yes, along the way, we noticed a lot of problems, okay? And we have also been innovating ways of how do we address some of those problems, okay? Until the government took a stand, the government of Uganda took a stand that to address some of the prevalent problems in the land sector, we need to also move in a digital age, including digitization. Okay, and I can tell my brother Charles that for those of us who have been working with the Ministry of Lands, the support of the World Bank has been helpful. So I disagree with you that what they are doing is, in the land sector, for us as a ministry, they have been good partners and they are still doing more. I can tell you that before the support, of course it was the government of Uganda that approached them for assistance and the support, and they came on board, but I'm saying with their presence and their contribution and support, we have moved a milestone. I said we have now what we call the National Land Information System, which captures all the entire land mass in Uganda in digital form. That one is not a mean achievement, Charles. Before that, we had like a centralized land registry, where the guys from Tororo in their village, the guys from Kisoro in my village, and other areas, all of them had to come and converge in Kampala to come and look for a land title. It was a nightmare, okay? My sister has told you that we now have 23, okay, zonal offices. These zonal offices, which are spread from Arua, Moroto, Kabare, Rukungiri, Jinja, 23. 40 Potro, Kabalore, Masindi. You will start from A up to Z, processing a title. Okay? You no longer have to come to Kampala. And it has now helped many people to quickly process their titles. But also that accessibility, that information availability, that transparency has exposed many things which have now become a bit of big problems, and they are the ones we are addressing. So this transformation exposed many things that we hitherto had not taken note of, and we are addressing them. Charles, I mean...
Where are the checks and balances for these zonal offices? Because it's like you're transferring fraud and corruption from the Ministry of Lands to these zonal offices.
Timothy, that is an overstatement, really.
That's why I've asked about the checks
there
and because the
you need to also give credit where it is due. Okay? Yes, there may be shortcomings, but I think we are transferring good things into our communities through these zonal offices. However, those shortcomings that we are not seeing, we are really addressing them with a farm stand, okay? We don't tolerate indiscipline, we don't tolerate corruption, we don't, of any nature. You cannot say that it is the policy of the ministry that we are now transporting the bad things only without noticing the good things. Please take note of the good things that are also coming along.
Let's be practical. The LC1, I am buying land from Professor. For their transaction, they want to put their signature on it, and there is a percentage they want. 10%. If I have an issue with Professor, and Professor, because she's at Makere, and I'm a Muntu Wawansi, I will run to either my MP or the RDC. The structure of those people, for me to process my title, for me to have subdivision, it's easier for me to bribe or get the corruption to get the title out. What I am asking is, where are the checks and balances? Because we knew Kampala as the central office, and would look at Esther and say, Esther is the one in charge and we're holding her accountable. What checks and balances are there for those zonal offices?
Okay, thank you. You see, when we established these zonal offices, they went with administrative structures. Every office that was that is at the headquarters, okay? We have supervisors at the MZOs. Every MZO or every ministerial zonal office is manned by a person called principal assistant secretary or principal land management officers in any case. We have all officers, registrars, surveyors, and etc. And I encourage the public that if you have gone to any of our offices and you have been mishandled, there's a hierarchy that will address your shortcomings. But if you feel you are not satisfied with what the service you have received at this zonal office, then the ministry headquarters normally comes in to quickly address some of these shortcomings. So yes, checks and balances are there. But Timothy, I wanted to also tell you that, and I wanted to respond to Professor, that in Uganda, yes, we have 4 land tenure systems, as we mentioned. We have the Mairo, which is common in the central region, and a few areas of Ankole and the Tolo, the ones we call native Mairos. We have leasehold, which is really for urban areas. These are contractual. Then we have freehold. Normally, these are conversions from customary to freehold and etc. Okay? These are freeholds are spread across. But the biggest chunk of land in Uganda is held under customary, or what we are calling communal system. Okay? And also the government has not left this unattended to. We have come with programs and approaches, still with support of the partners, where we have said, okay, in the 4 different tenures, what menu do we have for each of these persons in these categories? We have what you call customary certificates of ownership, which we have really been giving more or less free, okay? It has been a subsidized service, okay, by the government of Uganda with the support of the World Bank and other partners. We have, okay? And in some areas, they have really embraced it. You are talking about the government infrastructure. As I speak today, I think before the close of this month, we are supposed to have delivered 240,000 titles under what you call systematic land adjudication and certification system called SLAC. This is a program that is really 98% fully subsidized by the government of Uganda. Even when people don't have money, government has said, okay, we create a charge and we make sure that you process titles for these people to secure their land. Okay? And all this one we have to take. Then for
how do a local person in a village actually access and benefit from that registration?
Actually, we picked out to what I can call pilot districts. And we started with 14 districts, okay? Pilot. We come in a sub-county, okay? We map out that whole sub-county free of charge, using government machinery, government employees, everything government, with the support of the people precising the World Bank under the what you call the CEDEP project. We have been having a CEDEP project which has been championing this, and the people were actually required to pay only 65,000 shillings. You can imagine, 65,000 shillings. And even where the people were not able or were doing the processing, the government took a decision to create what you call a government charge. Okay? Do it, give it to the people, then the government will deal with its people. As a pilot in the 16 districts, and we have so far, by close of this month, we are supposed to give 240,000 titles in a number of districts. That's one. Two, Professor talked about the high cost of processing a title. You people, what aspect make a title expensive?
Give us the costing.
The government income from this title is actually 65,000 shillings. But now, the surveying is a private service. And we have no control on how much the private surveyors charge. However, now there's a law in offing which is going to streamline and regulate how much the surveyors can charge. Just the way lawyers are now regulated, that you cannot charge beyond this amount.
Yeah, and that's the cost which is too high for the farm household.
So, yes, we have also noticed it is high, but it is high from the private sector. It is high from outside. On the side of government, it's 65,000 shillings. And of that 65,000 shillings, some of the monies go to the district. Small, 15, 13,000. What comes to the center is about 45,000 shillings only. But we noticed that the private surveyors who are doing this were charging high. Then we had an issue with area land committee and district land boards. Okay? Because as the professor rightly noted, is that now if I'm in a hurry and they have not released the money to these district land boards and area land committees which are not paid, they are not salaried, okay? Then you may have to foot their bill. Yeah. But all of that is being streamlined. Then there was another thing, disputes. How has all this reform, how has all this so-called digitization and this addressed disputes? I said, information is power, okay? Because of this digitization, we know the owner, and we now know if there's a case in such an area, we also now go deep and establish who is disturbing people and for what. Okay? The government has come up with different packages to address land disputes. Okay? In Mitiana, in particular, we did what we call certificate of occupancy. Certificate of occupancy, where a surface tenant is given a document as a proof of ownership vis-a-vis the title of the landlord. Okay. In agreement. Okay. Then the other issue which Professor addressed, the gender balance vis-a-vis land ownership. This one we are also trying to address it, and in many of these customary certificate of ownership, it is a must that we register you with all the entire household. Okay. And including women.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Let me answer something. Yes. One particular question about UCC Soroti. Title in Soroti. Yes, we are aware of this problem, but when we investigated, we realized that the problem was a problem of survey. Okay? And really, the parties, UCC and the UEDC, something like that, they have realized where the mistake is, and they have, as I talk now, they have withdrawn what they had earlier on submitted, and they are doing a resurvey. So the people of Soroti, UCC Soroti, should really be at peace. This issue is being addressed. For long, the surveyors were trading ping-pong until we showed them that, you know what, the problem is here, you either address it or proceed with your court. And I'm happy to report that the surveyors of UTCL, okay, accepted and realized where the mistake was, and they're addressing it.
Okay, thank you. I also, after the beating, now we can soothe it a bit. I know the registration has come from 56 days to 2 to 4 days turnaround time, which is really credit to you. And also to Esther, where there is a two-factor authentication there. But I'll come to that. Dr. Charles, let's have some bare knuckles here. The tenure system. Things that Commissioner Bijira has hinted on are customary, and also he has hinted on Milo, is our real problem in our tenure system. Is that the problem? But also, coupled with that, what is the purpose of this land fund? Because it's being abused in many allegations. And my final question, we're getting into 2026 elections. Why are we solving technical matters with political lenses?
Yeah, thank you. I really, first of all, would like to commend my senior brother here, the commissioner, and say that his responses make very good listening. They're articulate. They coherent, and they tend towards answering a problem. But the problem it's trying to answer is a self-created question, you know, by the land elitists of this country.
What do you mean by that?
One of the questions you asked me was, is the problem within the tenure systems? And I don't want to be academic or elitist in this. I would have said yes and no. But I want to make it very simple. I think the whole thing here, the hallmark of this situation is basically a justice question. It is a question of where, like the old mantra says, if justice should be served, it should be seen to be served, and it should be done in time. I think some of the solutions, and the solutions are not like the the officers have explained. It's not really, I don't want to call them knee-jerk. They have been at this. And certainly, like he's pleaded, let's give credit where it is due. One thing, for instance, if you scanned Africa, the land information system in Uganda is one of the few in Africa. But of course, we also know Uganda for championing many things. You know, they kick the first strong leg, and then it chickens out. That's commendable. Two, we have had a progressive land legal regime, like I tried to explain. Right from 1927, we started having interventions up to the other day. Now, for me, our problem is really not the systems. The truth is that the system was corrupted. And Johnson, you'll bear with me. I have a problem with the neoliberalist. He created this problem, and he's come back. I am suspicious. You know, one of my biggest mentors, RIP, the late Tajuddin, Dr. Tajuddin Rahamada, used to say, if you must be part of a debate, you need to be part of crafting the agenda. We did not craft the 1900 agenda. We need to be given opportunity to craft that agenda, or we need to be on that table to craft the agenda. And this is how. Professor Sally has ably explained the variances in land ownership and registration. Because we are emphasizing registration, but it's just a very small portion, you know, of people we are talking about. And those are the haves. What about the have-nots? Because the principles of law that stand around equity, fairness for all, and all that, leads you to the issue of, and that's probably something you need to discuss after digitization, the question of the political economy of land in this country. The women vis land are disfranchised completely. They hardly own land in this country. Now, the same constitution in this country guarantees every Ugandan opportunity, economic opportunity, to participate, to grow, and all that with its fairness. The problem with the tenure systems, for instance, in Gulu or Pakwach, where I come from, a piece of land, maybe 20, 30 kilometers from Pakwach town, is not the same cost with a piece of land in, say, Mukono or Kayunga. Now, we have said land is a factor of production. Let's assume I want to go into business. The only piece of land I'm entitled to is that one in Pakwach, almost 20 kilometers out of town, in my little village in Alui there. That piece of land was bequeathed to me by my ancestors. I actually hold land. But I don't stand in the same footing with somebody with land in Kayunga. So the question I'm asking, is this same country that I am a citizen in treating me equally? Is it treating me fairly? You know, when you go deep into the political economy, by the way, let me tell you, these banks you're seeing, these commercial banks, World Bank and all these other aping banks, they are not interested in us. You see, if you understand the money market, because this is a money market, this is a capitalist market, banks are interested in security of tenure. Banks are doing business, commercial banks are doing business with government in the form of T-bills, in the form of bonds. When you get to any ordinary commercial bank after 1, 2 p.m., when they have traded in their bonds and their bills, this piece of paper we are hyping so much, they will give you a cosmetic look of, yes, we are interested in it. But the ordinary man will tell you, you can work for 60 days before you pick 2 million shillings with that piece of paper. The other question to ask in the element of political economy of this country, the lands people, these digital systems are not cheap. They have invested money and a lot of money. You'd want to ask, what is the cost-benefit analysis vis the majority of Ugandans who do not own these titles?
Okay.
So, is this a country? Are we only planning for those who have? Or this country plans for everybody? Those are the questions in the mind of an ordinary man. Yes.
Dr. Charles, those are good questions. Let's get back to what was the purpose of the land fund, and is it living up to the objectives that it was set up for?
It is the same. By extension, this is what I'm trying to answer. That we have found ourselves in this country, and you see what I'm saying is not far-fetched. If you read the report of the Uganda Equal Opportunities Commission, it shows you the disparities in this country in terms of regions. You know, it shows you in education, in health, in employment opportunities, in land. So the piece of land in Koboko and the piece of land in particularly the central areas, there's a mismatch. So for me, what I would want to see in terms of equity, yes, government is trying to ensure that they consolidate this factor of production and probably make us better. Professor Sally says it's better to plan for a country, especially when you know what you have. And we need to be careful right now, because where the world is going with all these climate change variables, there are lots of places that do not have any more arable land. We still have very good land in Uganda, and we need to be careful about it. In fact, that also raises for me the issue of security that I wanted to ask her. Is it Esther? Because I also know for a fact that this LIS system, especially the what do you call it, the software, was implemented and for some time was being managed by a French company. I do not know whether Uganda has now built the Wikisite capabilities to be able to safeguard the information we have. Because we're also talking about cybersecurity. You look at the last police report, the last annual police report. I'm also a security researcher. I know that cybercrime has come on top of all crimes. So when you talk digital, in a world like Uganda where it still sounds a mirage, I only sympathize with my friends. I have bought in, the explanation has swayed me in for the digital elements, but the questions of the land fund, like you're talking about, whose is it, where is the fairness in it, the land tenure system, customary, freehold, and you know, how do we use this to access this money market?
Okay.
There are a lot of inequalities in that, and that is a problem for the ordinary person.
Thank you. Commissioner, just I know you have a few responses, but let me add a question to that. How secure is an ordinary Uganda's title with this digitization?
Thank you very much, moderator. Before I go to your question, let me first do justice to the presenters, to the listeners. There are some questions which I think we should address first. There's one who said, why should one piece of land have multiple titles? Multiple titles, like I said, most of them were created during the manual systems. And the factors that would bring out a multiple title or multiple titles on one piece of land could be poor survey methods. If a surveyor did not pick the parcel properly, you find that you could not realize that the two parcels are overlapping. They could be taken as two different parcels. So the titles are issued to that effect. Yet they are referring to the same land, piece of land. The second one could be fraud. Fraud, there are so many titles out there which didn't go through the system. Some of them are even, people got mortgages. They're in the banks. You realize after someone has even taken the mortgage. So there are so many titles which are not authentic, but they are presented, people still furnish them around, and you might think that's a genuine title, yet is not. That's one could cause several titles. One could be one genuine title and other forged ones. To the normal person, they all look to be titles. Then the last one is on the naming. You might find that a title, one piece of land is the same title, but when what was being attributed, the attributions were mismatched, either the block or the plot. You find that's the same piece of land, but has been named on a different block. So someone is having that title, you could never know because it is in fact the same piece of land, but it's named differently. So it's only after this system that we're realizing that there are such titles. Because when they are brought around, you find that it's there's a unique identifier of each parcel of land. That's why I discovered that there are some titles, some plots were given different identifications, yet this is one single plot. So that's one way you could find multiple titles on one piece of land. Then one person said, this was Edward, who was asking about the difference between the blue pages and white page. Actually, as per Ugandan laws, a blue page is a title. How did the blue pages come around? Long ago, during the colonial times, there was massive surveying But the colonialists found themselves overwhelmed by the number of parcels that were being created. So you could find that Mr. X buys land from Mr. Y. It's defined as, it is properly agreed in the agreement that Mr. X has bought 10 acres from Mr. Y. But the colonialists didn't have the capacity to survey that piece of land. So what they did, they would put that one written onto the title of Mr. Y, that Mr. X has 10 acres on Mr. Y's title. And they would issue what we call a blue page. So those people are carrying blue pages because the parcels are not determined, they were not determined on the ground, they were not surveyed, but they were known that so and so has an undetermined piece of land on Mr. Y's land of so much magnitude. So that's why you have these. And those people died eventually without changing them to the white page. So now you find that there's a third or second generations are coming up with the same pages to be converted to the white pages. Then there was Mr. Kawenga. He said that to him, digitization of land is a process to confuse omuntu wawansi. I think Mr. Kawenga needs to be more informed how, as people have been explaining, how far we've gone with digitalization, how it is helping through the transactions. I remember when the first was still in the manual system, if you would plot a parcel of land on a sheet, these manual sheets, and somehow there was a mistake, or you wanted to change something, there was no way you could change it unless you rub, and you were rubbing with razor blades. You had to scrape off what you had already plotted. And if you look at those, some of those sheets are scraped. And they look ugly, and there would not be any record why someone was changing that. But now with digitalization, if there's a change of a piece of land, either by dimensions or by acreage, it's properly documented into the system, who did it and when he did it. So you can easily follow up with that search. So you can see, even interoperability, when you are interpolating and bring in more data, like the geographical information system, when you have all digital data, it is very easy to manipulate around to come up with what you want. Otherwise, if you have only manual data, like we used to have on the maps, it's very hard to use it for any other purpose. But with digitalization, the data is digital. It can be used for other functions, like in all other aspects. You can be using climatic change studies. You can use it in forest management. You can use it in road compensations. So it is very easy to do that. Then one said that he has a title. It is 1 acre. This is 1 acre, but in Wakiso it is reading 40 decimals. And he was asking, what should he do to rectify it? To do this, you have to do what we call an area amendment. It is a process that is allowed in land transactions. You can have an area amendment of your piece of land. If there was some problems, either the survey was not properly done, or there were some miscalculations. These were errors are made. So what you do, you get a surveyor, a registered surveyor. He makes a report. He comes to the ground. He does the resurvey. He resurveys the piece of land and makes a complete survey report. Then on that report, he must attach what we call an area amendment form, which he signs and stamps, then delivers it to the Administrative Zonal Office, and it will be handled as a rectification of title.
Okay.
I think those are the questions which the people ask. Then you have been asking,
how secure is my land title?
Your land is far, far better off when it is digitalized than when it was before. Because like we've said, digitalization, you can easily know if there are changes on any piece of land, either by registration or by surveying. It will be recorded on the system, who is doing it and when it is being done. So you can easily follow up if there's fraud.
So how am I notified?
How you could be notified, because now the present app we have, like I say, these apps we have, they have got instant messages. Actually, if there's something happening on your land, it is instantly put on your phone that, oh, parcel X, some transaction is taking place, and this is the transaction. So I think you can see how secure it is. Before you could not know. You would get to know that the title was changed or someone did some transaction on your title when maybe you go again to transact. But now this time, even if you're not transacting, that message will come in immediately on your phone.
How come where people report that now that you have everything there open, digitized, it is easy for people to grab if they use your officials, because they know which area is under mile, which areas parcels are big, which parcels are small, as opposed to the past where within a manual system that was not easily perceived. So while it has the advantages you're saying, people are saying it's actually aiding land grabbing, because now it's easier to know which part in Gulu, in Kayunga, in Busoga is big and just there with peasants.
Yes, Professor, you are right. Like we said, every positive element has a negative element. But sometimes positives have to outweigh the negatives.
Yes.
And when a negative comes up, then we should address it as such. Okay, if someone does that, of course, it is not legal. It is already an illegality. And once it's discovered, it will be rectified or you'll be prosecuted. And it's easy to discover, because some people are, like we've said, people are speculating. Some people get to know that there is a road going past through here, and they get information from, because it is very easy now to gain information, even pick the coordinates and try that. But that's still, we are trying to come to that, to say that before, if a project is coming up, let what we call strip maps be produced and they're put on the system. Then we ring-fence that area where the project is coming in. But the only problem we have that there are valuation laws where saying that you have not taken the land before you have compensated. So someone will say, have to keep on transacting before you. So we have all that, those two issues coming up, but I think by the end of the day we shall come to a solution, because you can't fail to get a solution to that.
Okay. Esther, you had something to say about, add a comment
Yeah,
before I come to Professor?
I had really a comment about the security. One thing we need to know about the system is that there are really several controls that have been put in place to see that this land, the records are secure and the titles are secure. And as the Commissioner has explained, one of them actually is this issue of the double plot numbering, which existed in the past, whereby people would attribute the different attributions. For example, if your parcel is straighted on different roads, you find that in the manual system, someone would attribute the titles. It means like it would name it, the parcel would be named on the different roads. And you find that, for example, Professor would have this piece of land and it's being named on a different road, A. You would have land, the same piece of land named on the different road B. But now with the digitization, this system which has been put in place, we see that these issues have been eliminated. How? We find that currently we have in the system what we call the unique identifiers. For every parcel that enters into the system, or for every title that is in the system, we have unique identifiers that can easily identify that this parcel is the only title that is existent in the system. And then two, we have ensured mandatory linkage. If this parcel is here and it is falling on different roads, we find that within now the current system, the land information system, these parcels, they are linked together. So if you have a title, and that's how we've been able to identify some of these gaps, whereby people were having multiple titles in the past, and when the system was put into place, we found that we could not, you would find that this same piece of parcel is being owned by several people. So there were other stages that...
Esther, let me stay with you. At what point, something Dr. Charles mentioned, French company running this program, do we own it? That's one. Two, what integration does it have with other systems that are already there? We
Number three, where is the storage? Where is the data stored?
Exactly. So there is NIRA, there is passport office.
In the cloud.
Okay.
Because that's the security that we need to talk into.
So the journey of digitization started way back, I think, in around 2010. Okay, there are several things, but let me start from when the system, the LIS came into place. Yes, it was funded.
Sorry, and also comment on cyber attacks.
Yes.
Because the police report 2022 and 2023, both reports show an increment in cybercrime.
Okay, thank you, moderator, and all the members and the viewers. Thank you so much. On the issue of security, basically, let me say the journey of the LIS, how it started. The LIS was started, actually it was deployed in the pilot phase in the 6 zonal offices at first. And this was wholly done by the French company at the time, which was of course because it was a project funded by the World Bank. And because we were learning so many lessons from them, we had to of course engage in that. So the LIS was deployed and designed and installed in the 6 first zonal offices that were piloted. And around that time, of course, that's when the French company was wholly taking responsibility of all this because it was a World Bank funded project. But then as we went on with the design and the development of the LIS, the first phase was to ensure that the records were safeguarded, were secure. So these are the phases. The first phase ensured that we had to scan all these documents, rehabilitate the documents, to do the reconstruction of all the land records that were in place so that we secure them. So that was the first phase of the LIS that was done. And it was really it was like a pilot. It was like to see how the LIS can continue to go on, how this idea of the digitization can proceed. So later on, based on lessons learned from that first phase, the rollout, we had now to develop that's when the full LIS was developed. That was around 2015. And based on the lessons that we learned from the pilot phase, that included now the French company being the one managing the system, we had to be involved in the whole process. So the ministry took it upon itself to now start the training of us, the IT people, and other officers that were supposed to now take up the task of managing, maintaining, and developing the system. And they constructed a National Information Center, whereby all the IT and the technical people that are really involved in the development, design, and the implementation of the LIS were situated. So we found that at that time, around 2015 onwards, we now started, we the Ugandans had to start getting involved in the process of the LIS. And to date, we are the ones actually who are managing this system. And in terms of the securities, we see that there are so many mechanisms that have been put in place. There are so many measures. One of them, of course, first was the establishment of the IT infrastructure, whereby in all the 22 zonal offices, we had to put all the controls that were there, the control measures. Some of them are physical, whereby for you to access the office, you must have either facial recognition or the biometric and all that. And then also we have the technical controls. This system is accessed by only people who have the rights to access them. It's a role-based kind of system whereby all the users that are within the LIS are easily tracked, as the commissioner had said, that you must have an account for you to access the system internally. And for that account, for you to access the information in the system, you must be who are you in the system? You must play a certain role. And for you to have that role, you should be given permissions to only do what you are meant to do in the system. So these issues that Professor was saying of people seeing all these big chunks of land and all that, yes, the system is accessible. But again, the system is also traceable. It has an audit trail whereby whatever activity is done within the system must be tracked and to the last person who did that. So you find when you asked about how the people at the zonal offices, what controls are there for people now because we have decentralized. First of all, this system is being monitored online. So we find that even when there are 22 zonal offices, the managers, even here at headquarters, can be able to monitor these systems and see. We have dashboards whereby our commissioners can be able to see who is doing what on a daily. And they can be able to log in to see the online users, who has done this transaction, the number of transactions, they are monitoring staff productivity and all that. There are different reports that can be generated through the system. These are all measures that have been put in place. And then secondly, we see like the dashboards actually also can do more than actually we can generate a lot of reports from them, and also we can see that who are the people who are trying to intrude. And within also the security measures, we also have what we call the Network Operations Center that was established at the National Information Center, where the technical teams are able to monitor whatever takes place in the network, the services, and all that. And of course, we have put also the backup and disaster recovery procedures in place, so that when the data is, when the transactions are done, they can be backed up. They have different layers of backups. One layer of backup are those that are resident in the zonal offices, where this data after the transactions have been concluded, they are backed up on their servers within the zonal office. And then also we have the offsite backups. And in all this, we see that we have the National Information Center, which is centralized. So whatever transaction is done within the different zonal offices out there, they are replicated. They are always being updated at the center.
Okay.
So
it's
that is what we have currently in terms of the security.
One, we don't own the system, right?
We own.
We bought it from the French company.
No, they were just contracted to do it.
So we own the system.
Yes, now we
To
own.
storage, you said, is it just the servers or also in the cloud?
No, what happens is that the architecture of this system is in such a way that we are operating, first of all, on a local area network. By this, we mean that we have both the IT infrastructure currently is that we have the servers at the zonal offices, and these servers are the places where this data is backed up. So we don't have any backup currently on the cloud.
A comment on cybercrime.
Yes. On the issue of the cybercrime, of course, we have mitigated this by one, the backup and recovery procedures that we put in place. And then also now, of course, people have been discussing about now our going online. We have put measures on that because the data that the public is accessing currently is read-only data, whereby all this other data is secured, and we are only giving like a mirror of what the public can see. And it's not like if someone goes through the portals, they can intrude into the networks, no. Because these networks are local area networks, whereby you cannot just come from the cloud and join into the network.
Okay, thank you. That is very informative. Professor, lastly, how do we have buy-in of a Ugandan? Because confidence in government is questionable. Confidence in government projects, Dr. Charles hinted on something there. How do we have buy-in, but also how do we localize it? Because a Samyang in Busia or a Mnyankore in Mbarara, how do we localize it and how do we get buy-in? Because these are very interesting, very nice things like Charles said, but buy-in and localization are the turnkey there.
Yeah, thank you very much, Timothy. And I think they are very important. It's very important to get local buy-in if this is the way we are supposed to go. We have already highlighted the advantages of the process, but we are mainly discussing the challenges. So getting government buy-in is therefore very, very important. But I think one way we can make this happen, one is to avail people with information. I think Dr. Charles talked about that, awareness raising. What is this about? And why do we need to digitalize? If we are convinced here, like we have been today, it is just natural that people outside there will be convinced. And of course, as we do that, we have to remember that the people are going to ask questions. One thing I have encountered when you're dealing with government technocrats on the ground, particularly if you're rural, it's a very condescending manner. It's as if you are peasants, you have no right to ask. We have come in the name of government and we have an entitlement to do this. I remember in one irrigation scheme where people were all being channeled to rice when they were actually matoke eaters. When people asked why is this and why are you irrigating a wetland anyway, People were told all these things, you're fighting Operation Wealth Creation, you're fighting the NRM. People actually went to jail for some of these things. Yet what people were saying is while the government wanted this amount of land, like 400 acres, the district leadership was taking more than double. So what you have is a government program, and this is the other thing if we are to build confidence, is being honest and sincere and transparent. I think the problem has come up because in many areas, well-intentioned government programs have also become vehicles for land grabbing. If government wants 100 acres, the local leadership will argue, will zone off 400 or 200. And there is no way the peasant or the local person can verify whether actually government wants 100 or wants 400. So the peasant fights a lone battle, okay, for their a quarter acre, an eighth an acre. So they are fighting lone battles. Of course, now I know in many villages people are trying to create land cooperatives as well, fighting this thing back. And normally, if you know someone in the NRM and you reach out, you'll be told actually what they are doing is wrong, and the rectifying of this thing is done. So we are back to how do we build confidence? One is awareness raising and answering people's questions, because sometimes people have landed in trouble just for asking a question they want to understand.
Yes.
As well-meaning and well-intentioned citizens, but the technocrats implementing it have landed them in jail for asking too many questions. The second thing, as I've said, is let the land, you see, you are unfortunate that you're doing a good thing in a polluted environment. So the whole aspect of digitalization is a good thing. But it is coming in a context of land grabbing, of murders, of so many things relating to land. So now when you come to help me survey my land, people asking questions, isn't this part of the other one which occurred in 2016 and which occurred in 2020? So I think one of the things you have to do is to drain the swamp of this bad influence by tackling the other things. And that's where the sincerity with government programming that comes in, the sincerity with the development comes in. If you want this length for a road, these meters, let it be that. But also it goes hand in hand with sharing information with what does government actually want to do. And by the way, Uganda now no longer has villages where people are totally illiterate. People will always ask for things like, can we see the project document? Can we see the environmental impact assessment? Can we see your report of the social impact assessment? Because some of these have people's villages, people's graves, people's plantations. And actually, when you give people this kind of information, they settle, they welcome a government project, they become the promoters. But where that does not occur, people become resistant, they will always report. They are the people who, if Muzei comes to the community, they'll be at the forefront to report X, Y, Z for having done that. So if we can ensure that that line also works well, and it's unfortunate that sometimes these bad acts are done in the name of Ministry of Lands. Because people wake up in the morning, there are mark stones there, and they say Ministry of Lands, when even Ministry of Lands has never been there. So I think the number 3 is have some presence on ground in the areas you claim. I imagine Uganda is all under your jurisdiction, where land is concerned. But if people are going to wake up in the morning and they have mark stones in their area, and everyone is denying having put the mark stones there, when people went to sleep without those mark stones, and they say this stone which is shaped like this is the Ministry of, people know the Ministry of Land stone and other people's stones. So have some presence on the ground to rectify some of these things. If not, I know you said you're going to give us a toll-free number. Let people have this toll-free number so that if I wake up with these Ministry of Land looking stones, people can call and say, did you pass here? And are these your stones? Because I remember in one community there was a contestation of these stones which appeared, and people were saying, and even Ministry of Land came to say those are not our stones. But no one would explain who duplicated the Ministry of Land's stones. So it is about presence, it is about being sincere with what we are doing as a government, but most importantly, it is linking up. I know you talked about linking, but that's within the lands. But can we link that kind of information with the other ministries that also require information? We are right now talking about the parish development model, where pillar number 6 is about parish development, parish information management system. So what kind of information does the parish have? I know we've been told the parish doesn't yet have enough infrastructure to keep this kind of information, but supposed to have land information, supposed to have production information, health information, education information. So if that information is taken to that level, people see the value of it, why won't they come on board? So if we have lands doing their own things and agriculture is doing their own things, then you have Ministry of Water is also doing their own things, because the one now which comes with the big dams and the like, then you're going to have a conflict. So there is a lot that can be done, and actually it is doable to settle people's confidence so that people support some of these programs other than always looking at them suspiciously. And finally, since now we are digitizing and we've been told that digitalization is going to take out fraud and double plotting and double titling, we hope that that is actually seen. If with the digitalization all we see is land grabbing, but still continue to see the double plotting and the double titling, then the whole purpose of digitalization will be lost. But as we do all these things, as a country, we need to be ideologically aware that we are in the fourth industrial revolution. People who are seeking information about us and about everybody else are out there. A lot of information was collected about our populations during COVID. A lot is being collected on education. A lot is now being collected on coffee, because I think if you have to prove that you are growing coffee in a place where you have not destroyed the environment. The plotting of this was done like 6-8 years ago by the German companies. We are now just waking up to talk about whatever it is, the recent thing, UCDA. But for me, even beyond UCDA, someone else has zoned, has mapped. For them to map and know that your coffee was not grown in a place of environmental degradation means they already mapped the forests. They already mapped the ecosystem. So we need also to be ideologically aware and not just send all our information away to people who may actually want it for different reasons than what government wants it for. Thank you.
Thank you.
Timothy, I want to clarify one thing.
Commissioner, clarify so that we don't go with wrong things.
Now we're going to give parting shots, and I'm going to give each of you 2 minutes. I'll start with Esther. I'm going to come to you, Professor. I'm going to start with Esther, Commissioner Johnson, Commissioner Bijira. I'll skip Dr. Charles. Then I'll come back to Professor and Dr. Charles to give their parting shots, but also comment on the conundrum of Dr. Besige.
Wow.
Esther, over to you.
Thank you so much, moderator. Maybe before I give my parting shots, I think I needed to say something about the integration that we have done currently with the different agencies. It is very important to note that the LIS actually has been integrated with several government systems, one of which is the integration with the URA, which has helped in the validation of payments and also to reduce on the forgeries. And this has led to increased revenue collection, actually to the tune of, I think now, about accumulatively $165 million US. And we have also seen like a great increase actually in revenue due to that kind of integration, because now it's system to system. And we've seen like just in the last 5 years that we've had this integration take place, we generated about 278 trillion shillings of Ugandan. So it is really something that we have done, which is good. And also we have integrated with, for example, the business registration system of the Uganda Registration Bureau, which has helped us see the statistics of the companies that are registering land currently. It has increased actually from about 100 in 2013 to about now approximately 9,000 companies that are registering their land. And this is all because of the integration. We have also integrated with now the other special kind of agencies, like the NFA, which our professor is talking about, the National Roads Authorities. These are all like to protect the eco-sensitive areas and also to see that we do not really create overlaps in areas that are gazetted. Yes.
Esther, your parting shots and the toll-free number.
My parting shots are that I'm really happy that we are discussing about digitization, and this is the way to go, and it is going to help us so much solve the land question in place. And I'm very sure that since technology is the way to go, we should embrace it. let us really, we have already seen the achievements of this digitization in the country, and we should really, all the public actually out there should embrace digitization of land services, and it's going to do more. It's going to help in empowering us economically and also improve on our livelihoods.
Thank you very much.
And the digital free number, you can get it. It is actually, for those who may want to reach out to us, of course now we have the portals first of all in place that where we can access information. We also have the website, the ministry website, but you can get our digital, the toll-free line, which is 0800 100 004. That is our toll-free line. Yes.
Okay, I'll read it again towards the end there. Commissioner Bijira.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Timothy. Thank you for the opportunity. I want to particularly emphasize on the issue which was raised that we should not be office managers, but we should reach out to the public. That we have had programs called Open Days, where we have been moving in the different districts. Particularly of recent, we have been having what we call Open Days at our zonal offices, where we establish the infrastructure, and we invite the public to come and view all services, access all services free of charge. However, we have also encouraged our officers to do more, to now move to the people, instead of the people coming to us, go to the different districts and share the information. And I also want to pass this, that we, as a way of sharing information and taking stock of what we have done, tomorrow, that's the 21st and 22nd, we are having the international conference in Munyonyo, and we have invited a number of stakeholders to still come and discuss and also share really what we have done and the areas we have to do more. But also I want to say that the land sector, the land, should be given more attention, okay? Because it is the future of the country, but also all Ugandans have specific and particular interest in this sector.
Okay.
So everybody should do, really, the government and the others should do, come in to support, to help us bridge some of these shortcomings that we are seeing. But we are committed.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Bijira. Commissioner Jasper?
Well, thank you very much, Timothy. My last short, I want to talk about, one, there are two issues. There was a worry that the foreign company IGN had handled the process of digitalization. I think that worry is not called for, because obviously the work had to be done by someone. And, and they had the expertise, and they really handed over everything to the Ugandan population and the Ugandan experts now. They are running everything. So we thank them for that. Then two, I've heard people saying, okay, even in this fora, that surveying is expensive. I will say yes and no. One issue has come out that surveying is privatized. And the other issue is that we are having also very many people masquerading as surveyors. That's one issue that's making also that bit, bringing in surveying being very expensive. You find that brokers come on board and they don't want, and I think some clients fear even approaching surveying offices. They have confidence in brokers more than the surveyors. So they end up paying almost double what they are supposed to be paying. And the other factor why surveying sometimes looks expensive is that the surveyors, unfortunately, or maybe very fortunately, they are the first contact people in land transactions. They are the first experts. And you find the clients say that when a surveyor puts in his bill, the client says, no, you give me everything up to titling. And remember the process, the titling process has very many actors. There's a physical planner, there's a valuer, there's a surveyor, there's a registrar at the end. So you find that all these expenses, even stamp duty at times, the taxes, the surveyor gives him the bill, and then people say, oh, surveying is expensive at the end of the day. So I think those factors should be looked at. Surveying as a factor. Okay, there could be some people who are expensive, yes, because it is an open market. But even then, those who are expensive sometimes also have other factors. Either the equipment they're using is expensive, because I think we have not had any subsidized equipment or prices for the equipment. These equipment are very expensive. And most of them, even surveyors, the actual surveyors, few of them can afford them. They're even hiring them from others who have. So I find that all those are factors that are bringing the surveying to look expensive.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Jasper. I'll start with Dr. Charles. Your parting shot, but also a quick comment on this conundrum by Dr. Bessie.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. And I would again like to commend the other panelists for, I think, a discussion well done. The Ugandan out there has gained some important information. And I think we need to take it up from there. The question really here is, how do we find land justice? The commissioners have ably explained that today land has come to the center of our lives. And for me, I would then want to urge government to try and also come to the center of this matter and ensure the three key things in an ordinary man's life. That one, land is accessible, it is equitable, it is affordable in all its aspects. Because from what we are saying, the people from the land office seem to know where all the challenges are. Surveying. We need programs. If it's about the equipment, why can't these equipment be subsidized?
Okay.
You know, if it is about information, like we are saying, I really think the thing here is the ideology Professor Sally was talking about. We need, my good friend here does not want to hear about the colonialists, but I will insist that we need to decolonize land. This land in the first place was ours, is ours. It was commoditized. We are now seeming to be begging, you know, to have a right to it. Of course, the legal regimes are appreciated, but they've also created problems. Like, you know, we are talking about the dual holding, where there is the title holder, then the rent guy. You know, all these bring legal lacunas, and that is where people are, you know, taking advantage of people. I would like to, I'm happy that you have started going out. The other thing I would want you to do, since you can find money to invest in digitization, find money in mass awareness.
Okay.
And have barazas. Don't, these conferences in Munyonyo are good, but they're good for me and you. My grandmother wants to know the security of her land. And then for Esther, you ably explained this security thing. But I will tell you that I've gone with some unanswered elements, and we can have a private conversation. Being a security researcher, I know where cybersecurity has gone, and I think it's beyond cybersecurity. There is, you know very well, that there is a mix of physical and cybersecurity. Where is the interface? You know, access controls and all these things. So, okay, for a Ugandan, it's not a doomsday. The Ugandan outside there listening to us should also learn that as in the whole equation of democracy, they also need to demand. We should not stop demanding. And then probably a commission and the other things. Teach some of these guys customer care. Invest some money in customer care. Bureaucracy is so rude. It's
Dr.
so rude.
Charles, let's come back to the conundrum of messages so that I come to Professor.
Okay. I've picked all these things from the media and I've not followed much. But as somebody who follows, you know, governance in this country, what is happening now has not surprised me. For me, the timetable for our political timetable kicked off. And maybe the message here for those in the political field is that 2026 is not going to be a walk in the park. It's not a boys' game. If you don't have the nerve, maybe this is the time to say no and walk away.
Okay, thank you. Professor, your parting shots and the dress rehearsal of 2026 with Dr. Bessie.
Okay, yes, thank you very much. One of the, first of all, like everyone else, I think this has been a very, very useful discussion. Land is central to us. It affects us on a daily. So having these three eminent persons tell us what to do even give us a toll-free number is very, very nice. So we appreciate for that. The question today was how safe is your land, and we talked about it in terms of digitalization and land administration services. From what they have presented, it is secure from that side. But these people do not have the means to secure it from your brother who wants to sell it, from the unscrupulous neighbor who is expanding, and the other people. So from the digitalization side, there's an attempt to secure. But as a country, we still have to do more to tell our people not to do these kinds of acts.
Yes.
Because people who are being killed in the countryside because of land grabbing, really, digitalization can only do that much. So what is happening there? It's lack of opportunities. Can our people have other opportunities? So that if we had other opportunities, instead of having to wrestle a brother or sister off the land, maybe you can get a job in an industry or in a factory, so that those who can gainfully make use of the land will, because that time will have to come in our society, that not everyone will own land because it's a birthright. It will end up being owned by those who can commercially put it to great use. And you have seen how in other countries they do things like taxation of land, which is whether being used or not used. You don't just hold land because you hold land. So I think it is safe from the digitalized side, but the threats it continues to have are going to continue to be there. So the police has to come on board. The other security forces have to stop colluding with the other. The district has to be responsible to the people. And I think it has been a very good debate for that, because this is it was very good use of taxpayers' money. So about the conundrum, I'm also coming new to it. I learned this evening that there's been this kind of issue. From what you hear from the papers, someone committed crimes by overstepping his right to hold a firearm into foreign territory. If that is really the crime, of course, questions still abound as to why he was not tried in the country he committed the crime, and why the country, maybe out of respect, why the country thought it's more important for him to be tried at home. But the other side of it, since in the context of 2026, there's also a belief that probably this is just an attempt for him to gain. I don't know how it really works out, but there are those who argue that probably he had sort of lost his political color, and this is an attempt of relaunching. But I just don't know how relaunching through a jail of that nature can become relaunching. But you know, with politics, anything is possible. So we just hope and believe that that justice is going to be done, that he's going to be treated well wherever he is and humanely, so that at the end of the day, of course, we saw today the trial, I think, was in Makinde. It was open, so these things will continue. And with time, we shall continue to hear what is happening. But I think this is just for all of us to be law-abiding, and we really don't know whether someone actually carried guns into another country, but that would really scare the neighbors and create very diplomatic fallouts. It is still early days, is all I can say. Thank you.
True, very early days, because remand has been there until the 2nd of December. Let me read some messages. Anena says the white ghost is being massaged by the Ministry of Lands, being fed by the courts, judges, lawyers, and police, and leaders alike are taking bribes from the land grabbers. One wonders why an ongoing land case would last 15 years and counting. Okay, this is Anena. Thank you very much. Looking at where Uganda wants to be in the next 100 years, we need to aminize land solutions. How can you talk about ranches, dairy plants, plantations, farming without amine solutions? You want to increase foreign exchange from peasants to coffee to all these things? This is Simon Etiang from Tororo. Okay. National roads digitalized? That's a very good question. This is Tumsime. Mine is about the topic, but your signals... Okay, thank you very much. Apologies for that. Okay. These are other questions that are asking where he can get it from. I am Ochoma Christopher. Why doesn't government treat Ugandans as an option? If Timothy defiles a P4 child, government may deal with him in a way of reprimanding the community. He may destroy her future. Why don't governments consider land grabbing a serious defilement? Yet it affects the ground. Finally, Obed, Timothy, thank you for the show. Just enjoying the show now. Okay, we'll leave that to that. Thank you very much for all the messages. There are numerous messages that have come through, both on YouTube and X, and we appreciate all the messages that have come through. To the technical team that has made today possible on the floor and in the control room, thank you very much. To the gentlemen and the ladies, thank you very much for coming through. We'll end it this way. You are not what you do. You are what you do. You are not what you say you will do. Good morning.
UBC, inspiring Uganda.
They are also some kind of tool in order to satisfy an frightened European and Western public, which is basically knowing that they are going to lose the war. So therefore, Western militaries are just presenting another wonder weapon after another wonder weapon in order to somehow calm down all those frightened Europeans who know that this war can also very soon come to them, which is, I guess, also one of the main things highlighted by the new Russian nuclear doctrine. And so therefore it's a lot of propaganda, but even the Western militaries know that a few ATACMS, a few Storm Shadow missiles, a few thousand mines won't change the course of the war. And the course of the war is Russia is winning. It's just a matter of time.
Well, you said a tiny bit earlier that most of the media stays silent. Well, we are very grateful that you don't stay silent, that you come and you speak to us and you offer this different perspective to our viewers. That was Alexander Makovits, head of the Suvorov Institute in Vienna. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the invitation.
Well, it's not only abroad that Joe Biden is facing backlash at the moment. At home, calls to impeach him are gathering pace.
How many times has this guy given us a red line and said, don't cross this or it will be World War III? And we've crossed it every single time. We have entered a moment of madness